On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, how good was the Thunder's 2024 NBA draft, and what should you look for in the 2025 NBA draft?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and inside the Thunder beat writer, Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions do apply. We are joined by Draft Digest writer Keenan Womack. Keenan, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm so great. Very grateful to be on, my friend Rylan. We've been friends for a while. I think this is the first time we've been face-to-face, or at least on the internet face-to-face.
Yeah, the virtual face-to-face. But Keenan, you do a lot of good work for Draft Digest, really breaking down each cycle. Let's start with last year's cycle, the 2024 NBA draft. The Thunder entered the night with only one pick. They left the night with three selections with Nikola Topic at 12, Dillon Jones, and Ajay Mitchell. Starting with Nikola Topic, what did you make of his slide? What did you make of his season?
I wasn't surprised he slid because of the injury stuff. You know, I had him probably about 7th or 8th on my board. You know, I try not to include injury on my boards, right? I try to just rank the players as they are, and you take the injuries for what you want to take them as. Nikola Topic is an interesting pick for the Thunder because he's such a ball-dominant guard, right? Like, his whole game is he's kind of a pick-and-roll wizard. He's a guy that likes to get downhill, kind of attack the basket. He's not really a shooting threat at this point yet. He's not a guy that's going to, hit a bunch of threes on you. So I was kind of confused by the pick just because how does he play with Shea if you're trying to play them together? Does that work? And then I started thinking about it more, and I thought about what the Kings did with their two ball dominant guards and how they got an awesome deal in getting Sabonis. So are they trying to get a Halliburton, De'Aaron Fox backcourt so they can flip somebody down the road? I don't know, but I think probably at that pick, he's the BPA, best player available. I know Devin Carter was still on the board there, and that's sort of a debate. But I think Topic really showed a lot in the Adriatic League. I mean, he played different levels over the last couple of years, and he was really impressive in a lot of games. It's just, man, the knee stuff is super concerning. But, if you're the Thunder, you're coming off a season where you're the 1 seed in the West. I think there's no real risk in swinging for this guy who could be a game-breaking point guard. So as much as the fit was a bit confusing, I think the upside is good enough to justify the pick there, especially at 12, where in this draft, which was super, as we'll get to, very confounding at the top, I would say, I guess. It's just very difficult to get a read on who the best players are, who has the highest floors, highest ceilings. So I think Topic, barring continuous injury, is more of a high floor guy just because of his ability to operate in the pick and roll as the ball handler.
Yeah, I think that grabbing the best player available is going to be an option for the Thunder a lot here, as you already have kind of a ready-made group, and you're going to have the luxury of some additional lottery picks because of some prior trades. You kind of open up that window for yourself, and at times in this cycle, Topic was viewed as the best player in the draft, and that's obviously changed some with the injuries. But you have a system in place that you feel confident in, given that you just saw Chet Holmgren have a redshirt season and come back better than ever. And you had last year moments where even whenever Josh Giddey was on the roster, you felt like you didn't have enough table setting and enough playmaking. You now shift with this mindset of a whole season to see what it looks like without that Josh Giddey archetype next to Shea and next to this team. Then you can shift to maybe bringing Topic off the bench, letting him run your secondary unit just right out of the gate as a rookie for him in 2024, 25, or 25, 26, whatever it would be. I think it'll be very interesting to see how they handle his role, how they handle what he'll bring to the table for this team. And it could be, hey, you just got the best value and the best player to use later on at a later date. So we don't really know exactly how that will unfold, but we do have a little bit more clarity on Dillon Jones. The Thunder traded five second-round picks to go back in the first round and get Dillon Jones out of Weber State. Was that surprising to you at all that Dillon Jones found himself in the first round?
Definitely, and nothing against Dillon Jones. Dillon Jones had such a high usage rate in college, right? Like he had the ball in his hands so often that my concern with Dillon Jones was, can he function in a kind of like a smaller role, a shifted down role? Can he be an effective piece? And it's hard to tell from Summer League because he put up some stats in that game. The game I was really focused on was the Thunder Raptors game that happened. I think that was yesterday. I watched some of it today, and he had a good game, but I mean, he was like a minus 25, but I don't know how much of that is his fault. You know, he was kind of playing with these weird lineups that weren't great for setting him up for success. So I think most of all, the question will be, can he play a scaled down role and still be as effective as he was at Weber State? Weber State, right? Weber?
Yeah. I think it's Weber, yeah.
I think so too. It's just will be interesting because the other problem with Dillon Jones that I saw was that he's not particularly elite at any one thing. He's not a monster athlete. He's not in a knockdown three-point shooter. So he's really good at a lot of stuff. Great rebounder. Maybe if you're going to go with his best skill, that's one of them. But it should be interesting to see how many minutes he gets this year because this roster is so loaded. I mean, you're a Thunder guy. How deep do you think they go this year, even with these draft picks, like as far as roster goes?
Yeah.
Straight up, like guys rotation-wise.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year you saw them run 10, 11, 12 guys a night in the regular season, and you haven't really detracted any of those guys. I mean, you swapped Giddey for Caruso. That was a 1-for-1 trade where you still then slot Caruso into those minutes, and then you went and signed Isaiah Hartenstein and didn't give up anything to go do it but money. So, like, you're still going to have all these guys who need some minutes and who need some opportunity. Hartenstein, of course, will slide into the Hayward slot in the sense of, like, number of players who need to play. He'll get way more minutes than Hayward ended up getting. But, you have not taken away a lot of those complementary players yet. I think that the benefit for the Thunder taking Dillon Jones, who I think has been impressive in Summer League overall, including his Salt Lake City stint where he was, around a little bit of better players whenever Usman Jang was playing, and they were able to craft some better lineups. I think that he looked really good in Summer League just as a weapon, and I think that he actually showed some off the ball as well in that setting. The problem with the Vegas setting, this team was already very limited on ball handlers. You take out Usman Jang, they don't have anyone left but the two rookies who you really want on the ball. You don't want Cormac Ryan out there a ton, even though much to the chagrin, he was out there jacking shots up on Saturday against Toronto. So I just think that it is tough to gauge what that looks like. It was impressive to hear his mindset at his rookie introductory press conference where he talked about how being the guy helped him realize, what it takes to be a guy. So we'll see how that translates in year one. But I think that in year one, the benefit of taking these 4-year players, even from a mid-major like Jones, like Mitchell, is that we don't really know what the season looks like. Not that they'll need to crack the rotation in terms of like being one of the 10 best players, but the Thunder last year had supreme injury luck and they still went 10, 11 deep. It only takes a twisted ankle. It only takes an elbow to the eye on a box out to knock out someone for a couple games, a couple weeks. And then, you need to have someone who's pro ready. Well, these are two mature 22-year-olds that can play right away, which leads us to the second-round pick. The Thunder made a just spider web of trades to go from no second-round picks all the way up to the top 40 to get Ajay Mitchell. What were your initial thoughts on Mitchell as a prospect? Kind of what do you think his value is?
Yeah, I liked Mitchell a lot. Kind of a point guard, but with some he can play a little bit of off ball too. He's sort of a combo guard. I always am interested to see how these West Coast Conference guys translate because you look at not even West Coast Conference necessarily, just more mid-major G5 type of schools and how those players translate to the NBA. You look at a guy like Brandon Pajemski last year, West Coast Conference guy. Arguably, the most important piece to the Warriors now. So I think we're in an era where you look at these guys who play for smaller schools and you may assume, he couldn't cut it at, name it, Kentucky, whoever, Arkansas, it doesn't matter. But these guys have proven over time that with reps, they can get better. And that's going to be the key with Ajay Mitchell. He's going to have to get reps. It's not going to come in practice. He's going to need game reps. And like you said, the Thunder run 10, 11 deep. So I think it's really important that he gets on the floor a lot this year, even in secondary minutes, even as a rotation guy at the back end of the rotation. I still think it's really important for him to get in-game reps playing against better players, because that's the real difference. Is the speed, the decision-making is going to be challenged a lot harder by better athletes. So I think the best way you're going to figure out if Mitchell is ready for the NBA is just, you're just going to have to play him a lot. I know that seems like surface level analysis, but that's really what I view it as. Is he's just, some guys can learn and practice improving a shot, you know, shot doctor, that kind of stuff, training, weight room. This is going to be a thing where he needs reps.
And you're going to be able to see reps even at the G League level with a team, the caliber of the Blue, who last year won the G League finals. Like, even that will be a step up in competition, because at least there, everybody's on the precipice of the NBA. No offense to the mid-major conferences. Like, not everybody you're facing is on the doorstep of an NBA opportunity or a professional opportunity somewhere. And so I think that that'll help them a lot too on that two-way deal to bounce back and forth between the two programs. But coming up, let's talk 2025 NBA draft, because the draft never stops, even as the Thunder are poised to be the favorites out west. But are they actually? We'll talk with Keenan about, should the Thunder be the favorites in the Western Conference, as the Dallas Mavericks are also making moves. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at Game Time. Check out the Game Time app to get started today. I love Game Time. Game Time is awesome. You want to know why? Because they can get you the lowest prices on last-minute tickets guaranteed. Use code LOCKEDONNBA today because it's awesome. I love Game Time, as they have the last-minute tickets. They also have flash deals, zone deals, and my favorite feature of all-in pricing. You can just toggle that feature on, and it shows you the entire total entirely up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. You also can get a view from your seat if you see that you actually don't know the venue you're going to, so you want to get a sightline check at the venue. Go download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase whenever you download the Game Time app today. Terms and conditions apply. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Joining us today, Keenan Womack of the Draft Digest. So we've discussed the Thunder's 2024 draft class. The picks do not stop rolling in for OKC. You can still bookmark tankathon.com. And if we just do a simple lottery spin right here, the Thunder can leap all the way up to number one, given the picks that they have, including a suspenseful watch of that swap with the Clippers, in case things might go haywire in LA without Paul George. But nonetheless, let's start at the top of this draft, because ideally you'd want to see just this amazing lottery luck where the Clippers, similarly to how they give away J-Dub, like they are just good enough to make the play-in, then they think that they're going to turn it on at the play-in, then they lose in the play-in, now there's a lottery pick, and then you just see some massive jump, as we saw a jump in this year's lottery to the top. What a bad year to use your lottery luck on Alex Sarr. But Keenan, how good is Cooper Flagg?
Whoo, man. I don't think it's crazy to say he's the best American prospect since Zion Williamson, LeBron James. I think he's right in that tier. And I think obviously Zion is the more explosive, stronger athlete, but Cooper Flagg, man, his defense alone would get him into the NBA. Like, just the way he disrupts the opponent, just getting hands in passing lanes, being physical, being aggressive, being a dog. That's his thing. He is the most competitive dude on the floor at any given moment. You saw what he was able to do on the U.S. Select team playing against the Olympic team this summer. I mean, putting it to Anthony Davis, putting it to LeBron James. He's not scared of anybody. And if you look at this Duke class, not to get too far off topic, but some of the other guys they're bringing in too are very complimentary to his game. I'm very excited to see what he can do in the Shire system. Now, whether or not he'll ever be a great, outside shooter, I don't know. He's shown flashes of that for sure. It's just going to be a matter of consistency. But again, at Montverde, there were so many dudes who could shoot three. You're playing with Liam McNeely. You're playing with guys who can shoot threes. And he did that in EYBL Scholastic quite a bit. Did it some in the Chipotle Nationals as well. He is a absolute game breaker. He's in an amazing class, and I truly mean that. He's a bona fide number one in an amazing class, like a class where I would say probably 5 or 6 of these dudes would have gone number one last year. And if you put 5 or 6 of these dudes in last year's class, they would have been the top 5 picks of last year's class. No question. And probably even further. So very interested to see how he fares in the ACC, playing alongside Kamen Malak. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not. But, you know, there's just so many stars on that team. I wonder if there's going to be too many mouths to feed. He may not put up crazy numbers at Duke. You know, he probably will put up 18 a game or something. Like he's not going to be a slouch statistically, but he might not have a Kevin Durant 26 points per game. Like that's not what I'm expecting, but I'm expecting elite defense in the post, on the perimeter. He can play both forward spots, I think, at the next level. I truly think he can play small forward and power forward. Yeah, man, he's a true star in the making, and he's going to be gigantic in this country.
So whenever you look at this draft, who do you think will settle in as like that Scoot Henderson, Jalen Green role of like, if it wasn't for Cade Cunningham, if it wasn't for Wembanyama, if it wasn't for Cooper Flagg, it would have been.
Yeah, I think VJ Edgecombe might be the guy. I know he's undersized, but I mean, what he's been able to do with the Bahamas team he was the best player on the floor, and he's playing with NBA dudes, and he's 18. You know, he's better than DeAndre Ayton and Buddy Hield. He had 20 points in the Bahamas. I forget who they played, but I watched that whole game, and he was, I mean, lightning quick, aggressive as hell, and just a perfect fit for Scott Drew. I mean, could you design a guard in a lab better built for Scott Drew than VJ Edgecombe? Seems like the perfect fit for me. But I've been saying this, man. The second spot is very fluid. I got about 3 or 4 guys I think could be there. I think Ace Bailey could be there. I think Nolan Traore, if the shooting improves, could definitely be there. I think Dylan Harper could be there, you know, and then there's this next tier of guys that are excellent as well. I mean, it will change obviously over the course of the year, but I think Cooper Flagg is going to be your number one pretty much regardless. But there are a lot of dudes that could fill into that second spot. I think if I was a betting man, I had to guess the second overall pick this year, I would guess Ace Bailey, just because the upside is so crazy with just this hyper athletic 6'8", 6'9" kind of combo forward. Shot selection is not great right now, but if he can work on that, I mean, I could see Ace Bailey being almost as big of a star as Cooper Flagg, just from a skill and athletic. I mean, he's just a powerful athlete, and he's shown that throughout all of high school. And playing with Dylan Harper at Rutgers will be very interesting to see how they play together, because even though they're playing together, I'm not sold on Rutgers as a team. I don't know how good they're going to be as a team, but I know those two guys are going to be stars. So if I had to guess second pick, it would be Ace Bailey, but VJ Edgecombe is right in there too.
So whenever you look at this draft, like the Thunder have so many just mind-blowing protections and swaps and everything else. What does it look like in the first round in the sense of depth? Is there a certain area where the Thunder should be hoping that one of their picks lands, or are you just kind of comfortable anywhere in the first round to get good talent?
I mean, obviously you want to be like closer to the lottery, but like, I mean, I was just saying there's that top tier of about 5 guys, and then there's a next tier of about 20 guys, and I haven't been able to organize them yet. Obviously we got to wait till the season plays out, but I mean, look at Trey Johnson going to the University of Texas down the street from me. Look at Liam McNeely, a teammate of Cooper Flagg's, going to UConn. Look at Hugo Gonzalez, the small forward from Real Madrid. You know, look at so many of these guys. Igor Damon. Shoot, man, there's some returners that are great. I think JT Toppin's going to be a star. I think Colin Murray Boyles is going to be a star. I think there are plenty of guys in there. I mean, shoot, Jalil Bethea. I could go on for 15 minutes naming names, but the point is you're going to get a very quality guy that's an NBA starter caliber player pretty much up to pick 18, I think. Maybe past that. I think this draft is very good, and what's even scarier is I think 26 might be better. That's what's crazy to me. But yeah, man, this class is super exciting. It's going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out, especially in the top 10. And I'm, you know, as a Texas graduate, University of Texas graduate, and a guy who still covers the Longhorns, I am stoked to watch Trey Johnson in burnt orange.
Hopefully none of the OU listeners heard you mention that.
Forgot.
But
no problem with OU. I mean, I got so many friends who went there, man.
Keenan, let's talk about the actual NBA instead of just the drafts. Whenever we discuss who should be the favorites out west coming up. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. Joining me today is Keenan Womack. You can find his work at Draft Digest, and you can also check out Locked On Sports Today, a national YouTube streaming channel, giving you all the latest news and info about the sports you love, right there on YouTube 24/7, Locked On Sports Today. Keenan, let's talk NBA. You are a draft junkie, but also a big hoop head in general. You're a Mavericks fan. You've seen the offseason play out. The Thunder bring in Caruso, bring in Hartenstein, bring in this draft class that we talked about at the top of the show. The Mavericks shuffle out DJJ, but bring in Najee Marshall, and they bring in Klay Thompson. When everything settles in, and you've seen how Denver went from losing Bruce Brown to losing KCP, what does the battle look like at the top of the Western Conference in your eyes?
Yeah, I think the Mavericks sort of went laterally. I don't want my Mavericks listeners, because I told a bunch of Mavericks fans to listen to this. Obviously, Klay is not the defender he used to be. That's not my concern. My concern is more that losing Derrick Jones Jr. is going to be a much bigger deal than people think, because beyond the perimeter defense he provides, he almost provides he's a lob threat as well. And if you watch the Mavericks at all, obviously you do, but like to the listeners, Luka Doncic loves operating around the post and throwing lobs. It's one of the things he's maybe the best at the NBA at. It's just finding guys, getting open looks in the post for guys. Derrick Jones Jr. is an excellent cutter, and that's a super helpful skill for a guy like Luka Doncic, who is all about finding open guys, bounce pass, backdoor cut, whatever. And Derrick Jones provides great perimeter defense, man. He was a big part of this team last year. I was really sad to see him walk. Najee Marshall, provides sort of something similar, but he's not the same level of athlete, in my opinion. I don't know that he's a lob threat compared to Derrick Jones. But, man, I can't lie that I'm very excited to see Klay Thompson alongside Luka Doncic. I think if you had added Klay Thompson and not lost Derrick Jones Jr., you definitely are making a huge step forward, just because, man, if you watch that Celtics series, more than anything, the Mavericks need a spot-up shooter who could just hit threes when he gets open. And I think, though, the signing of Klay Thompson is actually more significant off the court to me, because it shows that Nico Harrison has these relationships with these guys, and that Nico Harrison can pull talent from other teams. He can pull guys away from the Lakers. He can pull guys away from the Bulls or the Heat or whoever. I think it's a big sign for a cultural standpoint that he's able to have these relationships. And on the court, I just love the idea of Klay Thompson getting wide open looks all the time. I mean, he's not the same guy he was, but dude can still shoot like crazy. And he seems very, very excited to be on the team. As for the Quentin Grimes acquisition, I'm a fan of that, actually, because in the offseason, I said the perfect fit for this team, they needed a backup ball handler. They needed another guy who could handle the ball. And because Luka's playing 37 minutes a game, and he played 100 games last year. If you count the preseason, Olympic trials, everything, playoffs, regular season, dude played 100 games, 37 minutes per game, usage percentage probably of 28%. Like, the dude always had the ball in his hands when he's on the floor. They needed somebody else to take some pressure off of him. And Kyrie, as dang good as he is, he can't do it alone either. So I really actually am a pretty big fan of this Quentin Grimes pickup, just because it alleviates some of the pressure on the primary ball handlers for the Mavericks, gives them another option, somebody who can maybe run the second unit. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I look at the Mavericks, and I just wonder how much of a Luka bump does Najee Marshall get, because he can benefit so much from what Luka brings that he replicates what DJJ was able to pull off. But we'll see like kind of how that all shakes out. There's a certain element of like, Tom Brady and Mahomes making their receivers better than they actually are. Can you extrapolate some of that from Najee Marshall if you're Luka? But I think that the Mavs are a force, especially now with, the second half of their season that they had, their playoff run, and now an entire training camp of like knowing your ingredients and knowing how to put them together. I think that they should see a lot of success and a lot of improvement in the regular season as well, should they, of course, take that portion of the season seriously, which is always a question in the modern NBA. But between the Mavericks and the Thunder and the Timberwolves and, dare I say, the Memphis Grizzlies, if they're fully healthy, like who's actually the favorite out west? Like, is it the Mavericks? Is it the Thunder? Is it just a bloodbath?
Oh, it's a bloodbath regardless. That's definitely on the table. I think 6 and 3 are going to be separated. 3 and 9 will be separated by 3 games. I think this is a super close. It's nice that some of the better players in the West went to the East. Paul George leaving the Clippers kind of, I wouldn't say it eliminates them, but it makes them way less scary. I mean, it definitely eliminates them from like winning a championship, obviously, but I'm not saying it eliminates them from making the playoffs, but it makes them a much easier out, in my opinion. I am really big on Memphis, man. I think Memphis is the team to watch in the West because people forget how good John Morant is. Now, he's had his off-the-court issues. We don't need to talk about that. But, like, on the court, he is a dynamic athlete, a dynamic point guard, a guy that can get downhill so quickly, so easily. He's a great passer. He can shoot. He's an all-around, he's a superstar. And I've the Edey pick has grown on me significantly. His drop coverage looked excellent in these summer league games, which I was not expecting him to look as adept as he was. He had 5 blocks, I think, in his first summer league game, 14 points, 15 boards, and the game-winning tip. Gigi Jackson, I think, is in for a huge season. Desmond Bane's in for a big season. I shout out Parker Fleming, our boy. I think Memphis is in a great position to compete for a championship. And I mean that, or compete for a Western Conference championship, at least. I don't know that they could beat the Celtics not right now if you were to play them. And it's going to take development, of course. Like, you're going to have to get leaps from some of these guys in order for that to happen. But I really believe in that system. I really believe in Desmond Bane. I really believe in Jaren Jackson. I think the key for them is going to be Jaren Jackson hitting the boards more. If Jaren Jackson can up his rebounding, watch out. But that's why you draft Edey. Maybe he doesn't even need to up his rebounding. Me too, man. I wasn't
in
a
that
big
specific spot
because we were talking about it. I remember and just being like, I don't know. He's kind of slow. I had the thought, I was praying because I like Edey a lot. As a guy, he seems like a good dude, and so I was rooting for him. But my concern was that he would have the Enes Kanter problem where you just kill him on the pick and roll. But it seems like he's more fluid on defense than I thought. I guess just his role at Purdue, he didn't need to do as much, but I guess he just seems physically capable of performing these things that can help that team. I mean, my pick for them was Yves Missy. And that's who I would have, if I were in charge of them, that's who I would have picked at that moment. But in retrospect, Edey seems like a perfect pick for them at that spot. And I should just look at stats and not just blow them off and be like, I watched him play. It's like the dude was dominant for 2 years straight. I mean, 25 points per game and 12 rebounds at the collegiate level, taking your team to the national championship game. Of course, they ran into a buzzsaw in UConn, but that's not his fault. I'm really impressed with Edey, and not to make this Locked On Grizzlies, but I'm very impressed with Memphis, and they look like a terrifying team to me.
You can go check out Locked On Grizzlies because I have them in my top 5 out west. I think that the Edey pick, specifically in Memphis, is what's grown on me. I still am not in love with him as a prospect almost anywhere else, but when you surround him with Jaren Jackson Jr. next to him, and playing with Desmond Bane on the perimeter, and being able to play in drop coverage, and playing for a team that we've already seen thrive with a kind of lumbering center, they played really well with Steven Adams, they played really well with Jonas Valanciunas,
Yep.
All of that mixing together is what's grown on me for the future of Memphis and for Zach Edey especially. But right now, I think that the West is Oklahoma City, Denver, Dallas, Minnesota, Memphis. That's what I got.
I would say Oklahoma City 1 as well. I would say Timberwolves 2. I'd go Dallas 3, Memphis 4. Denver 3, Memphis 4. Or, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Denver 3, Dallas 4, Memphis 5. That's what I would have. I also have Memphis 5th, but I just think they have the potential to be a team that breaks through. Look at last year. The Mavericks were the 5 seed. Guess who went to the finals?
Yeah.
Happens,
I think the seeding is going to be just the seeding part of it won't matter as much as just like last year we saw it didn't really matter that much either. But yeah. Keenan, thanks so much for joining us on today's show. Let them know where they can find you on Twitter, Draft Digest, what all you're getting out there and everything else.
Oh boy, we could take about 10 minutes because I got about 6 different beats. I write for Draft Digest for Fan Nation of SI Now. I actually am about to pick up another beat with SI as well, SI Fan Nation as well. I don't think I can announce exactly what it is yet, so that will be a secret, but I will announce it. I work for Texas Sports Unfiltered. If you're an OU fan, probably don't want to listen to that, but and then I have my own Substack, which is draftpunkofficial.com. It's free. You can subscribe. You're not required to. Everything on the website is free. I try to update as much as possible, but with all these beats I'm on, it's about maybe twice a month. I'll write like a long piece over there. But dude, Rylan, you are the man, dude. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been so cool. Like, I love this, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on. We'll for sure do it again. Again, check out Keenan. Read about the enemy. Read about the enemy in Texas on the wrong side of the Red River, and also read about the draft on Draft Digest. Again, Keenan, thank you so much. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.